people have been paying attention to my lifestyle.
Is that the world's smallest phone?
Oh, that'd be great if it was. No, it's just an MP3 player.
Oh, okay.
It has a microphone down there. It is recording now.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll tell you right now that there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. I was at one point in time very skeptical about my government, very worried about people that were trying to kill me, and maybe the rest of the nation. It's well known that I don't care, and that I'm not against any of those parties, and that I will not ever be against any of those parties. But I do have to pay attention to the fact that I have put my story in the middle of where people who work for people like that do explore and investigate. Now, I'm telling you that as a friend, and I'm telling you that because, there is a conspiracy out there. I'm not against them. They're not for me, but they are going to be interested in my research, and they have shown a great deal of interest in my research. So
they probably don't view themselves as a conspiracy, more of a collaboration.
It is a collaboration. It is a collaboration. Absolutely. I have used a voice recording of yours in the past, Colin, to cover my ass about something that took place in Des Moines.
I have very few voice recordings. When was this one taken? It was taken last
time you called me.
Oh, on the phone?
On the phone.
Oh, okay.
When you warned me of the potential of becoming a classified individual.
Yeah.
You freaked me out a little bit, right? So I was like, well, I'm going to record this in case I do disappear. My friends will have an idea that I wasn't kidnapped, So I took this same little device right here and shoved it into the earpiece of my phone and caught you just talking about, the potential of me being classified, and that was it. That's the only thing I've ever recorded of you in the past.
Yeah, I mean, you can't play around. You're either
right.
I mean, because you're going to be taken seriously.
Well,
don't think you're not.
The thing is, at this point,
what's going on?
All right. Well, it's like this. I'm getting ready to come forward and show the one thing that skeptics and scientists across America have been saying will never happen. It can't be done. Well, I can show that it can be done. People that have spiritual power or psychic power can be measured. I've located where it's at on the EMF spectrum. They're looking for voltometers to do it. There's a guy over in Tibet that could do a voltometer, but he was a really strong man in that regard. Most people in America don't spend their lives trying to focus chi or spiritual energy. They don't have the ability to put a whole lot of output. So you have to go a little bit lower on the spectrum, the EMF spectrum. That's what this is. Okay. I ran afoul of some trouble legally back in Des Moines a couple years ago. I was like, hey, could you give me a validation of, your experience with me? Nobody believed you existed, Colin. They thought I just created your email address. They thought that I just pulled you out of my butt and was like, yeah, I got a PhD friend of mine who blah, 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 blah.
And they thought you made it up?
Yeah. The judge was like, well, if he's real, we can tell him to come up here. And I'm like, the guy lives in Tennessee. I'm not going to have this guy just drop his job on the speck of a dime to come up and testify in this totally pinky-dink, rodunk, stupid court case that nobody here is even paying any attention to. The real reason why I'm here. Screw you guys. So
what do they think of the emails that I sent you? Do they think that you wrote them or something to yourself?
They think that I wrote them. Yeah, they think that my whole, they think that maybe intelligence people don't have scientist friends, or they don't have little, civil servants. Des Moines is stupid.
Wow.
Okay. I was thrown on a flight of stairs because of the intensity of some of the things that I've been able to do in a spiritual nature. Not because I'm crazy. Churches don't throw crazy people down flights of stairs. They get people like that help. They throw down people who do things that scare them down flights of stairs.
Was this the thing that happened in Florida, or was this in Des Moines?
This was in Des Moines. Florida, okay, yeah, I told you about Florida, Christian International, all that. Des Moines has no clue about me in Florida, and they're going to question now that you brought it up.
Oh, sorry.
It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Like, everything ties together, and I'm not really worried about any of it now. But yeah, there was a time in Florida where I spooked out an entire $3 billion organization of churches. But you see, in Des Moines, if you spook anybody, you're in trouble. You've disturbed the peace. Big problem. And I try to tell people I'm not disturbing the peace, I'm disturbing the war, but they never get it.
That's good. That's funny.
Right. Now, one of the most important things that I needed to clarify with you is in that original email that I was asking for a reference about an event that took place in St. Louis. You left yourself a lot of room to kind of like not have any in-depth explanation, or maybe it was just your memory, maybe I don't know, okay? Had I realized devices like these existed, it could have actually been measured as well as what was taking place. In the email, you referred to a moment where...
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that I felt like you were asking me to add context that I never really believed. Like, you know, I value your point of view, and I really value your open mind. But I generally don't buy into the description of the event that took place from a spiritual point of view.
I'm not even trying to find a spiritual sense for it.
So I thought that maybe I think
that's what it was.
I thought that's where you're going with that I didn't describe it from that point of view.
No, I wasn't looking for that at all. No,
right.
No. And so that makes sense to me now as to why the email was written in the way that it was.
Yeah.
And I'll say this here on this recording. Everything that I'm doing now is to scientifically show where spirituality and science actually converge, which is a very narrow course, but people on both sides of the fence, science and spiritualists, tend to ignore the other, and that's not beneficial to either party. You know, there's a measurable sense all the way down the line, but it means that spirituality has to let go of some archaic beliefs, and science has to let go of superstition. So it's not easy doing what I'm doing. But the event that took place in St. Louis with the word tree, as you remember.
Yeah.
You had asked me if I could read minds originally, as one of the possible skill sets I might have. And I didn't want to let you down. I didn't want to tell you that I can't read minds. So I was like, no, I'll put a thought in your head. And I kind of threw it back at you. Because I was aware that the Navy had practices or experiences with people doing telepathic things, often where they'll put like a test subject into one room, isolate them, have somebody else in the next room looking at cards, and the test subject is supposed to figure out what that person is looking at. It's one of the sorts of tests that the civilians are informed of. I can't do that. That's not my skill set. But when I said that I would be able to put a thought directly into your head, I knew that I could do that. I could do that to anybody. I didn't realize that had not yet been recorded in America or documented. That when I did that, I was pushing myself into this new bracket, coming forward to somebody and saying, hey, this is what I can do. This meter could have, or a better meter would have, been able to measure the EMF coming off of me as I was extending it into you and drawing or creating or crafting the picture of a tree directly in your headspace. That's how you got that image of a tree. So I put it directly into your head. I don't know, I was probably like 15 feet away at most, maybe 10, not that far away. there was a mechanical way that took place. It wasn't just some hocus pocus, blue poof in your head. I had to inject it. I had to extend a portion of my EMF into you and make that image. That's how I knew I could do that. Now, to anybody on the outside, like the girl that was with me, ooh, that's an amazing trick. And it's assumed that I was just broadcasting in a general circle maybe, or a general area, or maybe in a cone.
Well, how can you prove that you weren't?
That's why I built one of these.
Okay.
That's why. Well, yeah, I put all the solder in it, all the, from a kit.
Oh, it's a kit. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, all right. So let's say I accept your premise, and
I can see your face.
Thank you very much. Have you had success with your? Have you had success showing that showing that you that, I guess, for the lack of a better word, that you can broadcast a signal in a way that's I guess it's atypical of the way you would expect, a signal to be broadcast.
With an expanding circumference?
Yeah.
I could. I don't know what the range is on that. The friction, it's not like light in space with no friction at all. Be more like light going through water. There's a lot of friction to a human broadcasting to a certain point. I've learned, and this is really weird for some people, when I was playing old dungeon crawlers, and you go into a dungeon on the video game and you don't know which way to turn.
Guys, y'all still doing okay?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good. Have you taken this one?
Yeah, I'll take it.
You
doing okay, man?
I would search. Something in me would search for the correct path to go. And I realized years later in life, the reason why I had a much higher success rate at first time through dungeon crawling was that a part of me was searching for the person who made that map. And in there was a way that I was connecting to the memory of that particular board. I didn't realize this is what I was doing. I just found a place where a lot of this information was accessible and I could just do it if I searched in the right zone. But there was a lot of friction. There was a lot of things that made the image, the idea, very diminished, very hard to understand and trust as concrete. But my percentages of going to dungeon crawling maps, I was always one of the first ones through most of them. If I was in that zone, I didn't realize I was searching the history of somebody else's thought. They didn't intend to broadcast that though. So broadcasting is not necessarily the atypical way that things like that happen.
Okay, well, so are you talking about the person that made the game?
Mm-hmm. Or people that had already gone through. When you're looking for a wavelength or a frequency, you tune into that. You're on a radio dial, you go up to 99. Right. In the EMF spectrum, where human thoughts have had the same situations over and over, where humans have experienced the exact same sort of circumstances.
Okay.
There then becomes a larger, more pronounced field or a larger, more pronounced broadcasting, but it's not being broadcast. You have to actually search for it.
Well, I mean, I don't exactly know what you believe about this, but the way I think it works is that you don't make a conscious decision that to broadcast or not to broadcast. Basically, electrical signals give off a weak EM field, and and they're being given off all the time, constantly. So I don't think generally that that you can control it.
The problem with that is that I've already shown people that I can extend my EMF outside of my body.
Okay, so that's what you believe.
That's what's been measured.
Okay, so that's what you can prove.
That's what I can prove.
Okay, and that's great. That's not where I was going with that.
Okay, sorry.
But I think what you're saying is that through repetition, the theory is that when you go through the same set of thoughts, or you go through the same
it reinforces it somehow
over and over again.
I'm not even sure how though.
Yeah, it's some people call it burning in.
Makes sense.
The neurons. Things become reflex. Your memory of those things improves, right? Remembering through repetition. The theory is it actually changes the microstructure of the neural pathways in your brain. Which, if you are giving off some recognizable signal, it stands to reason that it would alter that signal a little bit. So,
for instance, my stepmother, who has not liked me much the past 6 or 7 years, ever since the Florida experience, when I tried to inform her of it, we've recently come into contact with each other again. My stepfather had passed away. He hated me with a bullet after the Florida experience. I played for her a recording where I finally made my case to one of the largest churches in Des Moines as to who I was, what I was doing. And I was making a map on my computer at the same time. While she was listening to it, one earphone inside of her head, I was totally ignoring her. The intensity of emotion that came off of her snapped my head away from what I was doing, and I looked at her in the eyes. And I acknowledged her, and I went back to what I was doing. An hour and a half after the recording was finished, I said, "Did you have this thought? Did you think that if only Terry could see him now, my stepfather, if only my stepfather could see his son now?" The answer was no, but she knew exactly what I was talking about. She knew that when I flipped my head, she had been thinking he would be able to understand this about him. It's all laid out. She had all of those same ideas. Turns out, telepathy is not the brain reading the brain. These others that the Navy and the rest of the sources talk about, the others don't have a brain. They're not a part of our dimension. They're not a part of our reality. They don't have a brain. The telepaths that we use to communicate with them, they're not brain to brain. It's emotion or the EMF reading the EMF. The brain happens to be a part of that in the humans. There's actually another layer of translation that takes place for telepathic people. They're communicating in the lower EMFs. They're communicating down here where the spirits or their energy is, or whatever you want to call that. The brain might control what we think and feel, but it's not the brain reading the brain. It's the brain's interpreting of one EMF, the signal that it receives, from what's being transmitted from the other EMF that can be controlled by the brain, but it's not brain to brain. It's down here. It's deeper. This does not sound easy to understand at all. But that's why telepathy only has a 60% hit rate, according to the skeptics. They're looking for brain to brain, but they're missing out on the fact that the communication takes place lower, inside of the soul, or inside of the chi, or inside of the EMF field, or whatever science wants to call that part. That's where the communication exists at. Sometimes it matches up exactly with what we're thinking. Not generally. It's got two translational instead of just one translational barrier, it's got two translational barriers.
That's interesting.
That makes any sense at all. Yeah. So, she was able to broadcast loud enough to snap me out of my work. But she didn't know she was doing that. It was just a truly emotional surge where everything I had done in my whole life finally made sense. Like the 30 years that everyone's hated me for these weird things that happened around me, it all made sense when she heard this recording between me and a head pastor of a very large church. So, in a sense, there is true broadcasting the way that you think or asked about. But how would one control that? It appears that it's based off of emotional intensity.
You know, you don't have to. You don't have to look very hard to find a lot of people that will be open to these ideas. You've got. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that talk about a sixth sense. It's so common it's part of our language, right? Everybody knows what you mean when you say a sixth sense, right?
Right.
And it's usually in the context of just, you can't really put your finger on it, but you just got a feeling, and that comes from somewhere, and it's a universal thing. Everybody experiences it to some extent. It's just whether or not you want to admit there's something more to it than coincidence or. It's not, when you have a mother that senses that her child's in danger, right? And there's no really apparent way that she should know that. There's an explanation.
There is an explanation. Using the same technology as this, if it was somehow refined, if these EMF meters could be refined to be more articulate. I don't know what the right word is. To be better. I don't know. More condensed in what they're doing. You'd actually find that a mother and her child have a field that's long and string-like that goes from stomach to stomach. And that it would be larger in circumference than that mother and, say, the last person that she made the deal with. But there'll be a string from stomach to stomach for every person that she's ever dealt with. Every connection she's ever made. Every human has this. Kind of this area down here. But those connections are so small, what's being transmitted through. It's not a broadcast radius across the world when a woman knows that her child is in danger over in LA when she's been in New York the whole time. There's actually a pathway that extends and stretches and moves regardless of the positioning of each member. I had to build this because I had to show that I had a much larger one of these. That it's not as unbeknownst or as unique. The size is unique. And maybe it's just because science seems to be able to see that. There's a lot that my suffering in my life is opening the doors to. I just don't know where to go with it all. I know that I'm going to go forward with it now. I know that I've got a guy in LA